Jimmy Fallon thought he had Sylvester Stallone cornered with a cheeky jab on live TV, but the action legend's savage response left Jimmy's jaw on the floor and the audience in stitches. It all went down on a Thursday night episode of The Tonight Show, where the bright lights of the studio illuminated Jimmy Fallon as he sat behind his iconic desk, ready to welcome his next guest. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. Jimmy adjusted his tie, flashed his signature grin, and leaned into the camera to introduce the man of the hour. Tonight, we've got a legend in the house, someone who's punched his way through more bad guys than I've had hot dinners. Please welcome the one, the only, Sylvester Stallone. The audience erupted into cheers as Sylvester Stallone stepped onto the stage. He wore a sleek black blazer over a matching black shirt, his hair slicked back, and that familiar smirk plastered across his face. The 78-year-old action star waved to the crowd, soaking in the applause before taking a seat across from Jimmy. Jimmy clapped along with the audience, his eyes gleaming with mischief. He had a plan, and he couldn't wait to set it in motion. "Sylvester, it's so great to have you here," Jimmy began, his tone warm but with a playful edge. "I mean, you're a legend. Rocky, Rambo, The Expendables, you've done it all. But I gotta ask, man, you're 78 now. Are you too old to throw punches, or are you still training for Rocky 47? The audience chuckled at Jimmy's jab, and he leaned back in his chair, clearly pleased with himself. He expected Stallone to laugh it off, maybe share a lighthearted story about staying in shape. But Sylvester Stallone wasn't about to let Jimmy have the last word. He leaned forward, his smirk widening, and locked eyes with Jimmy. The studio fell silent for a split second, hanging on Stallone's response. "Jimmy," Stallone said, his voice low and gravelly, "I've seen more action in my pinky than you have hosting this desk, kid." The audience burst into laughter, the kind of roaring, uncontrollable laughter that echoed through the studio. Jimmy's confident grin faltered, his cheeks turning a faint shade of pink. He opened his mouth to respond, but Stallone wasn't done. "I mean, what do you do all day? Crack jokes and play games? I'm out there still climbing mountains, literally and figuratively. You wouldn't last a round in my ring, pal." The crowd went wild, clapping and cheering as Jimmy tried to regain his composure. He forced a laugh, running a hand through his hair. Okay, you got me there, Sly," he said, his voice a little shaky. "But I'll have you know, I've been working on my jab. I could take you, maybe." Stallone raised an eyebrow, his smirk turning into a full-on grin. "Oh, you want to go, huh? Let's see what you've got, funny man." The audience roared again, sensing the playful tension building between the two. Jimmy, never one to back down from a challenge, jumped at the opportunity to keep the energy high. He clapped his hands together and turned to the crowd. "All right, you heard him. Let's do this," Jimmy said, his enthusiasm infectious. "We're going to reenact a Rocky scene right here, right now. What do you say, Sly? You be Rocky. I'll be the guy who gets punched." The audience laughed again, and Stallone nodded, clearly game for whatever Jimmy had in mind. The stage crew quickly rolled out a small set of props, a makeshift boxing ring with a single punching bag, a pair of boxing gloves, and a stool in the corner. Jimmy grabbed the gloves, slipping them on with exaggerated confidence, while Stallone stood up, rolling his shoulders like he was about to step into an actual ring. The crowd cheered louder, feeding off the electric atmosphere. Jimmy turned to the camera, his eyes wide with mock determination. "Okay, America, you're about to see me channel my inner Rocky Balboa. Watch and learn." He threw a few awkward air punches, his movements more comedic than athletic, and the audience chuckled at his antics. Stallone, meanwhile, stood off to the side, watching Jimmy with an amused glint in his eye. "All right, champ," Stallone said, stepping into the ring. "Let's see if you can hit that bag without hurting yourself." Jimmy grinned, winding up for a big punch. He swung at the punching bag with all his might, but his form was so sloppy that the bag barely moved. Instead, Jimmy stumbled forward, nearly tripping over his own feet. The audience laughed and Stallone shook his head, crossing his arms. "Kid, that was pathetic," Stallone said, his tone dripping with mock disappointment. "Let me show you how it's done." He stepped up to the punching bag, and with a single, effortless jab, he sent the bag swinging wildly on its chain. The crowd erupted into applause and Jimmy's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with exaggerated shock. Whoa, 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 Jimmy exclaimed, stepping back. Did you see that? That bag didn't even know what hit it. He turned to the audience, playing up his amazement. I think I just felt the wind from that punch over here. Stallone chuckled, flexing his bicep for the crowd. That's what 50 years of training does, Jimmy, he said. You want to feel real power? Come over here. Jimmy hesitated for a moment, then shrugged and walked over, still wearing his boxing gloves. Stallone grabbed a nearby prop, a flimsy cardboard cutout of a villain from one of his movies, and held it up in front of Jimmy. All right, pretend this is the bad guy, Stallone said. Hit it as hard as you can. Jimmy nodded, winding up for another punch. He swung at the cardboard cutout, but his aim was off, and he ended up knocking the prop right out of Stallone's hands. The cutout flew across the stage, landing in a crumpled heap near the edge of the set. The audience burst into laughter, and Jimmy covered his face with his gloves, clearly embarrassed. Oops, Jimmy said, peeking out from behind his gloves. I guess I don't know my own strength. Stallone rolled his eyes, walking over to pick up the crumpled cutout. But as he bent down, he accidentally knocked over a stack of props nearby, a tower of foam bricks that Jimmy had set up earlier for another segment. The bricks tumbled to the ground with a dramatic crash, and the audience howled with laughter. Jimmy spun around, his eyes wide. Sly, what are you doing? He exclaimed, rushing over to the mess. Those were for my next game. Stallone straightened up, holding the crumpled cutout in one hand, and shrugged innocently. Sorry, kid, Stallone said, his smirk returning. Guess I don't know my own strength either. The audience laughed even harder, and Jimmy shook his head, trying to keep a straight face. He picked up one of the foam bricks and tossed it at Stallone, who caught it effortlessly and tossed it right back, hitting Jimmy square in the chest. Oh, it's on now, Jimmy declared, grabbing another foam brick and launching it at Stallone. The two started a playful foam brick fight, tossing the props back and forth while the audience cheered them on. But Stallone, with his action hero reflexes, dodged every throw with ease, while Jimmy kept getting hit, stumbling around the stage like a clumsy kid. Finally, Stallone decided to end the chaos. He caught one of Jimmy's throws midair, dropped the brick, and stepped forward, towering over Jimmy. All right, enough of this, Stallone said, his voice booming. He flexed both biceps, and the crowd gasped as his blazer sleeve ripped slightly at the seam, revealing the still impressive muscles underneath. This is what a real fighter looks like, Jimmy. Jimmy stared at Stallone's biceps, his mouth hanging open. Okay, I'm done, he said, throwing his hands up in surrender. I can't compete with that. You win, Sly. The audience roared with applause, and Stallone took a mock victory lap around the stage, pumping his fists in the air like Rocky Balboa after a big fight. Jimmy collapsed back into his chair, laughing so hard he could barely speak. I think I just got knocked out on my own show, he said, wiping a tear from his eye. Sylvester Stallone, everyone. We'll be right back after this break. The cameras cut to commercial, but the moment was far from over. As soon as the segment aired, clips of Sylvester Stallone's savage takedown of Jimmy Fallon started spreading like wildfire across the internet. On X, users couldn't stop talking about it. A user named @MovieMaverick posted, Sylvester Stallone just owned Jimmy Fallon on live TV. That pinky line had me rolling. Stallone vs. Fallon, The Tonight Show. The post racked up over 10,000 likes and 2,000 reposts within hours. Another user, named @LateNightLaughs, shared a clip of Stallone flexing his bicep and wrote, Jimmy Fallon never stood a chance. Sly is still the champ. Sylvester Stallone, Jimmy Fallon. That post got 8,000 likes and 1,500 reposts, with fans flooding the comments. One user replied, I haven't laughed this hard in ages. Stallone needs to come back ASAP. Another wrote, Jimmy's face when Sly flexed, priceless. The official Tonight Show account even jumped in, posting a behind-the-scenes photo of Stallone and Jimmy laughing together after the segment. The caption read, When you challenge a legend and lose spectacularly, thanks for the laughs at Sylvester Stallone. The Tonight Show. That post exploded with 50,000 likes and 10,000 reposts, cementing the moment as one of the most viral segments in recent Tonight Show history. Back in the studio, Jimmy and Stallone returned after the commercial break, both still chuckling from the chaos. Jimmy looked at Stallone, shaking his head. "I've got to say, Sly, I did not expect to get roasted like that tonight," he said. "You're a savage." Stallone leaned back in his chair, grinning. "You started it, kid," he said. "I just finished it." The audience laughed again, and Jimmy nodded, clearly impressed. "Fair enough," Jimmy said, "but I'm calling for a rematch. Next time, I'm bringing my A game." Stallone raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Good luck with that," Stallone said. "You're going to need it." The crowd cheered one last time as Jimmy wrapped up the interview, thanking Stallone for coming on the show. But the internet wasn't done with the moment. Over the next few days, memes and reaction videos flooded X, with users recreating Stallone's pinky line and Jimmy's stunned expression. The hashtag #, Stallone versus Fallon, trended worldwide, and fans couldn't get enough of the hilarious showdown.